Welcome to Look, Listen, Laugh. My guest this episode is one half of the iconic comedy duo, the Umbilical Brothers. He's performed all over the world, opera houses, theatres. He's performed for the Queen, on the Letterman Show, the Tonight Show. Look, I could go on and on. It's always a true pleasure whenever I catch up with this guy. We're going to delve into his favourite album, film and book. So sit back, relax, enjoy my conversation with Shane Dundas. By the way, Shane, I got to thank you for doing this because I know you don't do podcasts.
No.
So this is officially probably the first podcast that you, as Shane Dundas, have done, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and I'm only doing it because it's you.
Ah.
Because it's the nice guy. This guy is one of the good ones.
Well, likewise. Everyone feels that way about you in the industry too.
Stop
mate.
it. But yeah, there are the evil ones, and then there are us.
The select few.
But it's because it's you. But yeah, normally I wouldn't sort of be sharing myself.
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that because with these podcasts that I do, I want to talk to people that I'm genuinely interested and genuinely like as well. So I'm very excited to have you on.
Yeah, I watched your Rob Brydon.
Oh yeah.
As the primer. Nice work getting Rob to be more open and just relaxed about the stuff and just being a human.
Sure.
Because sometimes it's hard for us to just be.
You feel like you got to be on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And I find that's where the gold is too. When you sort of drop the act and it's just someone being themselves. And also too. You've been around so many comedians over the years. When someone's always on, like off stage, you're just hanging out. It's like, dude, we're the spotlight ain't on. Let's just connect, and chat and.
Yeah, it's okay. You could still be funny if the thing comes to you.
Of course.
I've got to do this. And even for this, I was, occasionally thinking, oh, that's a funny thing I could say.
But no, whatever. It makes it's good for the social clips.
Yeah.
Those short little grabs of.
Unfortunately, I've forgotten all of those.
Don't worry about that.
I was going to say. So yeah.
But I'm interested to know because you and Dave, your partner in crime with the Umbilical Brothers.
Yeah.
Did you guys meet at Nepean? That's where you studied, right?
Yes.
In Western Sydney.
Yeah, University of Western Sydney.
Yeah.
Sydney Theatre Nepean was a great course. Due to funding, just going, kind of died.
Yeah, because it was a very well-regarded school too. David Wenham came out of there, and Joel Edgerton, Akmal Saleh, who got asked to leave.
Yes, that's right. So what does that? I don't know what that says about him or the course, but he is definitely his own universe.
Akmal,
and that's what makes him special.
Totally. He's very he's got a very unique mind and unique outlook, and his life, like what he does on stage is hilarious, but what happens to him in real life is just as hilarious. His life.
Man, just the number. You're the same, right? He's told us these stories, these road stories, and you can't write that stuff. And I just keep saying, just do a show, just sit on stage, tell the audience those stories. They're great.
Brilliant.
You would not believe what happens to this guy, and he hasn't gotten to it. We're like the special audience. We're the select audience for that stuff.
Who get to hear and sometimes witness.
Yes, occasionally. He's one of the good ones too.
Yeah.
Lovely guy.
Yeah. And it's because I've never really asked you questions like this. Like we usually just catch up and chat and talk about whatever's happening in our lives, whatever we're interested in. Yeah. But I've always been wanting to ask. This is what's great about doing this podcast. Though. There's certain questions I've always wanted to ask you, which I've never got around to.
Right. Oh,
which is the unique, the style of comedy that you and Dave do. There's no one else in the world doing that. And I know there's been comparison like Marceau and all that, but it's beyond mime and it's beyond stand-up. It's like an entity unto itself. And I'm wondering, how did you guys develop because for those who are listening or watching that haven't seen it, it's like it's physical comedy with a self-created soundtrack thrown in mainly from you in regards to that, like the.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've never thought of it as mime and noises or anything like that. We've just thought about what's the thing that happens, and how can we manifest that on stage.
Right.
And initially, we had no resources. It's just, how can you make a thing happen and an audience believe it with absolutely no resources? It's just you on stage. And the audience, we found, is willing to believe it.
Yeah, suspend disbelief and go with it.
Give them just enough stimulus, just enough information. And David's just this kind of physical virtuoso. He can just naturally do all this stuff. And it was an accident. It started as an accident in theatre school because we were kind of taking the piss. We were making fun of the mime classes.
Right.
The joke we say is just they just weren't loud enough. That was the problem. That's the problem with mime. It's just not loud enough. But we used to sneak into the lecture theatres after lectures, and they had a PA system.
Right.
And it was a microphone on a gooseneck stuck onto the lectern.
Right,
so,
right.
And it just kind of go in there and just, that's a gun. Oh, that's another gun.
Yeah.
Let's do more than guns. But, you start with the obvious.
Yeah.
And we had like 2 weeks of mime classes.
Right.
Mimes around the world have asked us, yes, they can speak. They've asked us, what school where did you train? And we kind of don't have the heart to say, look, we just did 2 weeks of mime classes. We're not really mimes.
Right.
It's just.
But did you know you had that ability before doing those classes? Like, were you physical beforehand? Or
we were always physical.
Right.
And it was just, imagine a thing. It's as if the objects are invisible. It's not, I'm doing a technique to make a thing. It's just, that's a thing. It's invisible. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a slightly different approach.
Yeah.
Less respectful, you could say, but it gets the job done. So you don't have to set up the box to there is a box. No, let's just open the box, get the thing out of the box. It's a very different way of thinking about it. So that's where it came from, making fun of the act of doing it in a way. So there's always been a kind of meta aspect to all the shows, in that often we're trying to do a show.
Yes.
And something happens that interferes with the act of trying to do a show. And I think that's a thing that's been running through all the shows.
Sure.
So there's always something on top of it that's kind of a narrative, but not really a narrative.
But the point that you made then, which I think is so important, is the imagination. Like, your imagination is going, but just as importantly, the audience's imagination.
Yeah.
And like any great art, it takes the audience I find, to make an effort to involve themselves in it, right? Yeah. So as opposed to just sitting back and watching, their imagination is flying from what you're creating on stage. So for that, it's a very dynamic relationship that's going on.
Yeah, I love that. I love the connection with the audience. It's not. I'm not going to talk at the audience. I'm not going to perform at the audience. It's almost like surfing. I'm not a surfer, but it's how I imagine surfing to be. However that wave is, you've got to ride it.
Right.
And on those good nights, and you must know this.
Yeah.
You have this thing and you've got your act, but there's this other thing beyond just the words or whatever that connects you to the audience, and you're sort of riding that energy. Totally. It's great. Those nights are great.
Yeah. Those one-off connections. I always liken it to like a conversation. Yeah. Like you can talk to some people, they don't give you much, so the work's on you. You're keeping it buoyant, But when you got someone who's saying something, and bouncing back, then suddenly going in directions or that you weren't expecting, and that's when it becomes this mutual kind of dynamic.
I love that, and the show can grow. Or your act can grow, your set can grow, because of a little thing that happened, and that turns into a bit or whatever. It's amazing as long as you're open to it
while
you're doing it. Of course, there are nights where it's just not a great gig.
Yeah.
And the audience is just a room of nothing but male bankers.
Yes.
For example.
Yes.
And
but you know what the weird thing is? Some nights on stage, like I'm thinking, man, this is, I'm like walking through mud here. But then you get off stage and they're like, I loved it. You know, you're like, oh, okay. Well, then, you know, as long as you were internally enjoying that. Yeah. So in my mind, because when I was starting out, I was a bit more like, come on, people, get with it. You know, but now I'm like, they're enjoying it in their own way, whatever that way may be. And sometimes towns have that kind of reaction. You know, when you go to, they're that kind of town, or that's that. And when you go back, it's always that kind of energy level. And how do you find that, though, taking this overseas? Because you guys like tour the world. Like I see you coming up. Like one night you're in Amsterdam, and then the following show you're going to be in Proserpine. You know, and you're like, I'm looking at your tour schedule, which are two worlds away. You know, and also like because you've taken it like throughout Asia, you've taken it throughout Europe, Germany, New York. You've had. It's
amazing, and really lucky to be able to do this. I think on our last tour, I think we went to the 41st country that we've been to do stuff to Croatia in the last tour. Never been there. It was great, really good, nice comedy club, Luda Kuća Comedy Club.
Yeah.
It was really good. But yes, this is what happens. It's the same towns, countries, and we always talk about Belgium because it's hard. Belgium is hard. The audience is quiet. They're reserved. And I think it's part of the culture.
Right.
So we've done shows where it just doesn't seem like anyone's laughing. We're going, okay, just keep going. And you just do the show, and you know it's a good show, and you understand that, and you go, okay, it's not working, so you're not going to, I'm not going to get upset about that. And sometimes it can feel like a great private joke.
Yeah.
A bad gig, particularly recently, if we have a bad gig, there's a perverse enjoyment of how it's
unfolding.
I'm kind of laughing at because I know this is good stuff.
Right.
You know, it works.
Yes.
And so I just kind of laugh at the experience. But the Belgians will not be laughing much throughout the show. And we'll be going, it's just not. And then the end of the show, and we get a standing ovation, which is what you're talking about, and you go, what happened? You liked it? Yeah, we loved it. We thought it was great, but they didn't. They're one of those towns.
Yeah. Makes me think of you enjoying the show? Why don't you tell your face?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, it's in that kind of wheelhouse.
Your enjoyment stopped here or something. Where did it stop?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that does happen.
But it's great you have Dave too to be able to bounce off of in those scenarios too. Because when you're a lone stand-up, it's kind of like you and your internal monologue going on, whereas you've kind of got a
That's
dynamic to bounce off of.
That's the scary thing about one of the scary things about stand-up, solo stand-up. I really admire solo stand-ups like yourself because it's just you. Live or die.
Everything's on your shoulders. Yeah.
You.
But you have done that though. You've done your solo show, so you know exactly what it's like.
I know how it is to die.
That just branching out and doing that by yourself, that's such a huge, especially, for so many years having that sort of duo dynamic happening.
And it is that thing. You're right. If it's just not working, we kind of share this little. There are these moments where we're just kind of looking at each other, going, "This is a bit shit, isn't it?" But, it's kind of
let's go. Just plow through it.
Yeah, and there's a sort of smile that comes, internal smile that comes with that. When you've been doing it for a long time, there's sort of you can sort of observe it with a smile and go, oh, it's one of those.
But it's a good place to be at, as opposed to sweating and, oh, geez, what am I going to do? Having that kind of, it's all right, it's okay, we're just in a different gear tonight,
Yeah, I mean, what happens to you when clearly it's not, you've got your nights where it just glides through and it feels great.
Yeah.
But then there are those times where it just doesn't. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, I kind of call it sometimes, just depending on like, if it's like yesterday I had this outdoor gig in Morisset at a fairground. Yeah, right?
Fairground.
Yeah. And it's like, oh my God. And I just said, look, we just need a few rows set up. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, look, they're paying me my corporate rate here. Just, get on with this and just have fun with it,
Yeah.
As I would have been different if it was like, being paid pittance to. And it's weird too, like going up there and doing it. I kind of like, at this point, like maybe I would have been more nervous about it when I was younger, like because thinking, well, there's like a field and there's hardly anyone there, right? And so I'm getting up beforehand, going, we got the comedy show beginning in 10 minutes, but I'm talking it up. It's going to be a circus spectacular. We got elephants appearing. We got just whatever, just trying to get there. And I had them set up a few rows of seats, and so the field in those rows got that core group of people. And I started off doing street performing, so it's kind of like back in the day when people are walking, they're not interested in watching me, so I kind of went into that mode. But I just did a lot of crowd work, and I had all this stuff planned that I was going to do. But, the half hour came around real quick and just bouncing, and they were lovely, they're laughing and applauding, it's a handful of people, but still, I gave them a show as I would any other kind of, performance. Sort of go in there and just with what you got to work with, try and make the best of it,
So, and you have the experience to be able to do that, to, like you say, call it. Yeah. And just go down the avenue that this particular thing requires.
Navigate within what you got to work with.
Yeah. And it can reveal some cool things.
Yeah.
Or give you ideas for cool things.
Yeah, and just make it unique too. It's like that performance that I did yesterday at that place is like, was a one-off, It's like just a very unique for that. Which I find you have to, because if I just got up there and just did my material as normal, like I still did material, but I made it more conversational and worked it within, someone might make a comment and then, bam, that'll spark that routine, I'll go off on that. So it's a very kind of, organic kind of approach as opposed to going out there going, I have my set, that's all I'm doing, I'm going to, which works in a theatre or works in a comedy club to go in there with your preconceived idea of what's going to happen, because there's not too many variables in a theatre.
That's right, and they're there they are focusing on you.
Yes, and they paid good money.
Yeah, there's no extraneous stuff going on, hopefully, in a theatre. They've paid good money, they've possibly paid to see you, which is good. You're right, it's a different avenue, but that's, be it in a theatre or whatever, if I can tell someone's doing, or it feels like they're doing exactly the same thing they've always done, and it's really slick, I slightly get pushed out of it.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
it's like you're detached, kind of watching someone do a performance as opposed to...
Yeah, and it's not for us.
Yeah.
It's for anyone.
Yes.
I want to feel like it's for me.
You're connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want the audience to feel like that when we do what we do.
Sure.
When I do what I do, or, you do what you do. But that thing about barriers that are thrown your way at gigs, like I think we're about to do something, and they've just said, there's going to be a dance floor. It's going to be a DJ.
The comedy mode.
Yeah, the comedy mode.
Yeah,
exactly.
which is great for corporate gigs,
How big? 5 meters. 5 meters.
Yeah.
5 meters of force field.
Yes.
That stops the jokes from getting through and the laughs from getting back. So you just got to deal with that, and maybe we'll just make a thing of there being a dance floor.
Yeah, incorporating that some way.
So.
But you've done some, like, you've done Royal Command performances for the Queen.
The Queen,
yes.
You met the Queen.
Yeah. How was that, by the way? Was that?
It's funny because, I was thinking about that because recently Queen went. And I'm thinking, is my memory of it a story? Because your memory of things like that, you sort of talk about it and you think, did it actually happen? Did it even happen? Did it actually happen that way? Or am I making up? Did I shake her hand? Only recently I thought, did I actually? I'm sure. For years I've been saying I shook the Queen's hand. She had white gloves on, and I shook her hand. But then I thought, are you allowed to shake the Queen's? Did I not ever shake the Queen's hand? Not that it matters.
But in your mind you did.
Oh yeah, I shook the Queen's hand. Yeah. And I think I did, but I don't have any footage. But that's my memory of it. But that's what happens with memories. They turn into stories, and they can slightly shift
a
from
little.
who knows what.
Yeah, there's the core of it, but then
Yeah.
whatever on the peripheral
Yeah.
might have happened.
Yeah. It's like the Woodstock '99 experience, which was just.
Right. Now, were you that when all like shit hit the fan, or were you on before all of that stuff happened at Woodstock?
No, the shit hadn't been done yet.
Okay.
The shit was still waiting to be done.
Yeah.
Waiting to be hurled, because we were there within the first several hours.
Oh, right. So you were there when everything was,
It was still pretty cool.
Proper, festival.
Yeah, the first day we were there, and it was hot, and we went on after James Brown, which is just surreal. I'm pretty sure that happened. And it was James Brown went on at the end of his act, basically, because the band came on one section at a time.
Right,
they started playing.
Yeah.
You know, and then the backup singers came on. They started doing this, and then at the end he came on. So the hardest working man. Yeah, that's right. And then he did his thing, and it was fantastic.
Fantastic. So you shared the same stage with James Brown.
Yeah, we went on and pretended to be making an announcement about drugs, and just did some weird stuff, and it went down really well.
Fantastic.
In front of many thousands of people, like I don't know, 60,000 people.
Yeah.
Whatever. And we walked off the stage, and this guy walked past, and he had a plastic fish on a leash. Just one of those pretend dog leashes that are stiff.
Yes.
He was walking a fish. He said, "Oh, that was cool." Just as I walked into the wings, what is this? What is? Apparently, that guy was Wavy Gravy, who was this famous veteran from the original Woodstock.
Right.
So this sort of hippie that had lingered.
I've heard that name before.
Yeah, he's a guy from the original. So if Wavy Gravy thinks we're okay.
Yeah, then fantastic.
So we thought we were okay, but then, so we were full of hubris, and we were taken a few hours later to the other stage, because there was an east stage, which is a big one, and the west stage, a smaller one, to do another act. And we stupidly thought we were invincible, and we just tried to do one of our acts, just one of our regular acts, rather than something designed for
the festival.
Experience.
Right.
And we should have just repeated it.
Yeah, different audience, different stage.
Yeah. But it was a hard metal kind of crowd.
Right.
This is the vibe, I think, that destroyed the whole thing.
Right.
That it wasn't peace and love. It was the MC was like that, and the whole thing felt like
there was an
that.
underlining sort of aggression or tension.
And it was so we came on. There's a couple of guys that think they're funny. All right, and they were show us your tits kind of scenario.
Right.
And we came out and tried to do our act, and it was just. I think it's on YouTube.
Oh, really?
I haven't watched it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That one. The other one.
Yeah, with the James Brown?
Yeah.
Is that one out there?
No, it's not.
Fantastic.
And they were broadcasting pay-per-view across America.
Oh, right.
For this thing.
And that's the one that they filmed on that stage?
That's the one that they broadcast across America.
Right.
Because the first one went so well. They went,
we got to get these guys.
Yeah, let's show them.
Right.
I think, whoever paid for this is just watching us die.
Yeah.
We just tried to finish the act. And that was when we were doing a lot of that stuff. And I think as we walked off, I think it was David who just said, "Let's keep in touch," to the audience. You suck.
So did you hang around for the rest of the festival then?
No,
or you got out?
We got we got out. We were just flown in for that because we were doing a run in New York.
Right.
It was the year we were 99. We were in New York for a year.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, your full year that you guys.
Broadway. It was great. And one of the producers of that was one of the producers of that, and that's
Woodstock. Right. Okay.
There's no other reason for us to be in such an event. you know. And I wanted to get a poster from the thing because it had all the names of all the bands, and we were at the bottom.
Yeah, that's great.
But when we flew in to this sort of private airfield, there were all these flowers on the fence line because John F. Kennedy Jr. had just died and had taken off from that airport.
Oh, wow.
So it was a little weird, the vibe of the whole thing.
Yeah.
In my head was a little strange.
Sure.
Very strange.
Sure. And because in terms of doing an off-Broadway run like you did for that amount of time, for a full year, how did you, is that the kind of thing that you prefer doing, just being in one place, working night in, night out, as opposed to the grind of on the road, new hotels, flights, long drives?
I like new audiences and new places. That's great. But yeah, getting to the places gets old.
Right.
You know, particularly from Australia.
Yes.
Australia is far from pretty much everywhere, and you've got the full day. And with the show that we're doing at the moment, there's heaps of equipment to set up and stuff. So we're setting up. We get there. We got all these bags, more bags than we've ever had for a show. Set it all up. Do the show. Talk to the folks after the show, which is nice thing. But then we have to take down the show. I get to the hotel and we travel to the next place. So yeah, one-nighters.
Set up, leave it. Yeah.
I love it if we can do a run somewhere.
Yeah, like a festival run.
Yeah. What about you with the travel? How are you with the one-nighters and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, because I'm all right with it, you know, like because I got used to it years ago, you know, touring with the amazing Jonathan back in the 90s, early 2000s in the States, and he had seven, he had road cases and there were all this equipment and duffel bags, and that's when I thought, you know, I think stand-up's the way to go, you know.
You're right.
So,
I think you're right.
So just to be able to travel and not have any of that stuff is, you know, and just walk into a venue and go testing 1, 2, yeah, they're the lights, thank you, good, you know that.
I find it amazing. You know, you had this experience with Jonathan, and I've seen the doco, which was great, and talked to you about it, and you're still really healthy and together, and I don't get how you weren't
corrupted,
for want of a better word.
Well, I think like with Jonathan, I learned so much of what to do with my life, but as importantly, what not to do with my life. You know, and that those were big lessons that I got. Like I was just a kid and I admired Jonathan, but I kind of had the sense to know what's good and what's not good for me, and and it wouldn't have worked either if I was working for Jonathan and, you know, smoking meth and doing cocaine and speed, and, you know, it would have been a mess, you know. So he needed someone like me to rely on to, make sure, you know, the coast is clear, everything's good, you know, we're going to be at the venue on time. This is, you know, so that was kind of that yin and yang dynamic that worked. Yeah. And that was one thing with Jonathan. He would have people working for him that weren't that way inclined. I think he was smart enough to know, you know. Yeah. Although he did sometimes have people that worked for him that got involved and all, but they didn't last long. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't a big. It just didn't. That dynamic didn't work.
No, he's a true original. He's one of the true originals, I would say.
He is. And you know, I was just talking to someone about it the other day, like. You see like comedian magicians and they try and replicate somewhat what Jonathan does or try and be edgy, but it just feels so contrived. Where with Jonathan, he had that glint in his eye like, this could go anywhere, man. This guy's the real deal, you know? Yeah. And he was so unique like that, like this wrecking ball on stage. And I think that's why he got so much like kudos from people like George Carlin and Bill Hicks and, you know, Bill Burr. They all, you know, paid a lot of respect to Jonathan because, you know, Jonathan was a great comic mind before anything else. I think that was the big difference with him. The comedy was in the attitude as much as anything. It wasn't just in the material. Right. It was the way the material was dealt with. Yes. The way tricks were dealt with. Yes. The attitude was the comedy, and not everyone can pull that off.
Yeah.
Not authentically, you know. Some people can fake it, and you know, it's all right. But with him, it was like that's why there hasn't been like a comedy magician before him, and I don't know if there will be after him that could just destroy an audience like he could. Like just the laughs per minute with him was just relentless. There were times I would go out and watch the audience, and there was a 5-minute segment of the show where he would just bam, 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 one after the other, and I'd go out and watch the crowd each time, and just people like genuinely in pain, rocking backwards and forwards, holding their sides. You know, it was just something to behold, something to really, to really take in.
True originals.
But when we were doing that gig at the Enmore, the gala show a few years back, and I saw the open suitcase of you guys, it just shot me back to Jonathan.
Oh, really?
Seeing like a severed baby's head, half an arm of, just all these props and stuff in the bag, and I actually told Jonathan about that, and in fact, not long after that, when was it, 2022. I went back, and Jonathan was in hospice care. He was, he had been fighting this sort of life-threatening ailment for nearly a decade, but this was the end for him. And I remember going back there, and on the way I bought him this fluffy toy from the airport, and my wife Erica and I were there, and Erica had it pop up over the edge of the bed, like doing this little act out thing, and we were doing sounds of it, and Jonathan was laughing, and he's like, "Man, did you get that from Shane or Dave? That's why I remember that in the show. That was because he loved when he came and saw your show. This was in '06 at the Athenaeum Theatre, and seeing the stuff with the puppets, with the wombat puppet and stuff, and afterwards he was just blown away by that.
Cool.
And so it was funny, like there's all those years later, him to see that and have that memory of you guys.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. No, he loved you guys. He really held a lot of respect for what you guys did.
Oh, that's great.
Or do,
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was one of those rarities.
Yeah, and that's the thing, films, plays, actors, stand-ups, if they're their own thing, it really impresses me and inspires me.
Yeah,
actually.
Sure.
Their own thing.
Speaking of one actor that you toured with, the comedian Robin Williams, doing the big arena shows like Rod Laver Arena. I remember seeing you guys there, and it was. And that's the great thing with you guys. You guys can translate to a big audience like that. Like there's a real uniqueness that you guys have, that you can play small or you can play big.
Yeah, we had the advantage of a camera crew and AV people who were into it and were willing to go along with, can you give us a close-up of just a foot, or close-up of just our hands, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And that was a way of translating to an arena, because you need to. It's all about the screen, which is partly what the current show is about.
Right.
And maybe influences come from that experience that fed into the current show. But yeah, we're thinking, oh God, it's going to be like, I don't know, 7,000-8,000 people here. What can we do? Let's talk about what it must be like for the people in the back row. And so we just made our hands be us, and then the camera would just get a shot on the big screen of just our hands walking around like this. This is what it's like for the people in the bit, and that kind of thing.
Right.
How can you translate a visual perspective, like some particular visual perspective?
Sure.
For the audience.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it worked great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was fun.
And also to coming backstage afterwards, chatting with you, and then Robin coming over and having a chat. And I remember because Arj was meant to come to the gig, because Arj knew Robin from Marin County back in California.
Right.
And something happened that night, and Arj couldn't come. But I remember Robin coming out excited that Arj was there, but he wasn't there. And then Arj has regretted that from that day. He's going, oh man, that would have been one of the last times I saw Robin too.
Yeah. He was such a lovely guy. Such a lovely, gentle.
Yes,
nice guy.
Gentle's the right word there. Yeah, like when it behind all the stage, very just someone that gave you his complete focus too. And genuine focus. It wasn't some kind of manipulative thing. It was like genuine interest that he had. And he just made it feel like you were connected.
Yeah, it's funny. After the first, we were told, you've got to do this much time. we thought, okay, let's just keep within our time because we're just there to be the required local act to support him. And we said, oh, we're just going to do this. And he said, no, do as long as you want to do. It's fine. You know, it's like, no, don't worry about that. You know? Okay, but we still did keep it within a few minutes
that
of
time frame, yeah.
But it wasn't.
It wasn't that pressure.
No, he really was not precious about that.
And especially for someone like him, like, you know, to have a strong act like you guys opening for him too. It's great to see the, you know, the believability that it had in himself too, because you guys, you know, are a show in your own right in terms of opening for him. So.
Yeah, I guess we're not what people came to see.
Right.
So they came to see him. So we've got to bring it.
Yes.
But one of the greatest joys of that experience was doing the thing and doing our stuff on stage and hearing him laughing. Yeah. Hearing that laugh, that particular laugh that he had, and going, oh, he just laughed.
Joyous.
At what we did.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, because it's not like he was a friend or anything like that. It was just this experience with him. We'd met him before, and he in LA years ago.
Right.
The first many years ago. Actually, we were doing workshop performances in LA of the show that we took to New York for a year.
What was the venue? Do you remember?
Oh my God.
Wouldn't have been like the Tiffany Theatre.
We did the Tiffany Theatre.
Yeah.
In 2001.
Because I remember that living in LA. I remember that used to be a great venue.
And it's gone.
Yeah, yes.
Oh. That one. Remember one night we were sitting there and it's just a small theatre, and there was, I think it was Billy Connolly, Eric Idle, and Carrie Fisher sitting in there.
Oh, wow. Oh, no pressure.
No pressure, yeah. Really self-conscious that night. But he and Eric Idle were invited to the workshop performance of the show that we took to LA.
Right.
Because the guy who produced us kind of knew them, and then we went out to lunch with these guys and just couldn't believe it, to be in this world.
Then Williams and Eric Idle.
Talking about and encouraging us and giving us advice about that stuff. And so he then said, I'll have to talk to Jay about getting you on the show, on the Tonight Show. Okay, yeah, sure. Thanks, Mr. Williams. And then we got on the Tonight Show. Thanks to him, probably.
Wow.
We were on it twice. The second time, he was on the Tonight
same show. Oh, that's great.
What's happening?
Yeah, it's like if you're gonna book me, you got to get the boys.
Yeah. So it's just sort of surreal. That's another thing I kind of think. Did that happen? It did happen. That's wow.
And Letterman, you did as well.
Yeah. That's
when you were over there.
Another surreal thing. Not that we met him or anything. With Tonight Show, Jay would come into the dressing room before the show and say, "Hey, you guys will be fine. You know what you're doing. Just do what you normally do, and then it'll be awesome." And they didn't prescribe what we were going to do.
Right.
Stuff. But with Letterman, they were very, very prescriptive about the material that they wanted us to do, and they wanted us to take some bits, some from one routine, some bits from another routine, and combine it into a 4-minute thing or whatever it was. And we're going, that's two different bits.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, can you do that? I went, well, we'll show you a few other bits. How about this? I went, yeah, that's great, but can you do that thing that we...
But I remember it was a strong set. You guys
fine.
made it work, yeah.
And in fact, it looked better than the Tonight Show stuff.
Right.
They knew how. We said, can you just keep it wide and don't cut?
Yeah, let us do it.
Try to avoid cutting if you can. Yeah. And they did that. They knew what they were doing.
Great.
The Letterman people, I mean, the Tonight Show people were great. It was a great experience. But Letterman, they just knew how to shoot the thing. And then he came over after the thing and said, that was great, guys. I loved whatever it was, and walked back to his thing, and that was all our contact with Letterman, because figure.
Yes, but that was when, you did the Tonight Show or you did Letterman, and it actually meant something. Like, like the people were watching.
Yes.
Not like today with a lot of the late night shows where it's more you get that clip to put online. That's when people are going to see more of it, as opposed to people tuning in to watch them around the country.
The cut through. How do you cut through a world of information where it's just this information flowing through our bodies as we speak? There's just nothing but information.
But that was when you were doing the New York run, though, right? When you did those 2 shows, because the thing, as you know, with the New York audience, you're getting a New York audience, but you're also getting a whole of America too, because Broadway, majority of people going to shows on Broadway or musicals or plays or what have you, are out of towners, coming to New York to see something. So how did you find from doing those shows then? Ticket sales and everything would have spiked as a result.
I don't know. I mean, it was never a smash hit. It was fine the whole year, and we'd sell out on the weekends, but it wouldn't sell out during the week, so it was okay. And they wanted us to continue, but we'd been in New York for a year and we kind of wanted to go home.
Yeah,
so for better or worse,
don't want to do another winter.
Yeah. I love New York winters.
Yeah. With
snow in Central Park.
At Christmas time.
It's like a movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good, really good. The audiences liked it, and good reviews, all that stuff. But it was downtown in the East Village, a place called the Minetta Lane Theatre, which was really nice. And I think it wasn't a Broadway show; it was an off-Broadway show.
Right.
Off-Broadway being up to 500 seats, like it was 499 seats or something like that. So I think we'd get more of the New York crowd than the out-of-town.
Right, okay.
Because of what it was.
Right.
And pretty good, smart crowd.
Right. But to get a year's worth, that's huge to have a full 12-month run.
It was like, again, like being in a movie or something. You did a show, then you walk through the village and you go back to your apartment.
Yeah, sure.
Well, here I am. Except it's just me, I ain't got no friends.
That's always the way, though, right? It's like, you're on stage, thank you, good night, back to your hotel room, sitting on the edge of your bed like Bill Murray in Lost in Translation.
Yeah, and that's another, Lost in Translation was one of the films I was considering talking about.
Oh, yes, today.
Yeah, because I lived in Japan for a year.
Oh.
In the 80s.
Really? I didn't know that.
As a student, as a uni student in Okayama. And so I could really identify with the feeling of that movie. You're in this alien, it feels alien, but it's quite welcoming. But she captured the feel of, him being in that situation.
Yes.
The feel of being in that culture.
Yes.
As an outsider, and just marveling at it kind of thing.
And to have been there in the 80s when you did it would have been a unique time to go there. Like, I always think travel pre-internet was more of an adventure because you were discovering things that you haven't seen a million times on Instagram or on Facebook. So that initial discovery was a lot more rewarding. Yeah,
definitely. It was really nice, and with the exchange program they had with my uni in Canberra, in Japan, they would make a point of taking you to places, to other cities, to Kyoto and Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Tokyo and places like that. And so we got to see a lot, and it was pre-internet.
Yeah.
So you just go, whoa, I've not seen this temple before. Wow, I haven't seen this temple before. It's another temple. You get to the point.
Enough of the temples.
Enough of the temples already. But lovely, lovely country. Really nice people. Definitely worth going to Japan.
I've only been to Yokohama and Nagasaki. And it was just fascinating. Like, there were still areas that I felt, in my mind what Japan is. You know? It was I loved it over there. I just want to go back and spend a lot more time there and go to Tokyo. I haven't been to Tokyo, but also go out to the villages to get away from the cities.
Definitely, and there's so much beautiful landscape. You know, there's so many people in that little country, but there's still 70% of it is just forested and stuff, and really lovely. And they're very conscientious people. They want they want to look after you because that's part of the culture. Yeah. Have you seen Godzilla -1?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I heard it's very good.
It is good.
Yeah.
It's a really good drama, and it takes Godzilla back to the kind of feel of the original Godzilla.
Right.
As
that stop motion kind of.
No, it's well, the original was person in costume.
Oh, right.
Right. This is CGI, but they managed to capture the feel of it and the drama of it, and recaptured this thing of it being a statement about Japan's experience of nuclear, being the only culture or country that experienced nuclear terror.
Yes.
You know, and what that did to people. So that's what Godzilla was about. And, you know, it's a monster thing and everything, particularly in the American movies. But in Japan, it's got that extra resonance.
Right.
And this film is definitely worth seeing.
Right, yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, it was interesting going to Nagasaki and going to, you know, Ground Zero where the bomb was dropped, and listening to the Japanese tour guide who was walking us around, and I just like, it was weird. It felt, because it felt very pro-West with what was being communicated, and I remember studying World War II history at school, and I always just had a big issue with what ended up happening at the end there with those bombs, and also not only the two Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but also the fire bombing of, you know, over 100 cities, which was more devastating in the long run to more people.
Yeah, you know? I read that in one night of firebombing of Tokyo, more people were killed than in
the bomb,
in
the atomic,
and that's what kicks off actually the Godzilla movie.
Oh, right, okay.
There's just a ruined Tokyo from the firebomb, because it's wooden buildings. It's all wooden buildings.
Yeah, it's like a tinder-box.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Because I asked that lady, I said, you know, I appreciate the tour and everything, but I don't know if I was out of line asking it, but I said, but how do you feel, you know, talking about this, knowing what actually happened historically? And she said, he says, no, I'm fine with it, because we were the ones that started it. We were the ones that were in the wrong. And I'm thinking, is she just saying that because that's what she's been told to say if she's asked a question like that, or does she really believe that? Or because I remember at schools when we were studying, like 78% of the casualties were women and children who have nothing to do with, you know, really what's going on on a war or political level. And it's
and I don't know why we don't learn from this stuff, you know. And we're all the bad guys in some way or other.
Sure.
And if we could all try not to be the bad guys, all of us, that would be cool.
Yeah, it is disappointing. You see what's going on in the world now, how it's very much, it's like just repeating the same shit that's happened time and time again. It's like, do we ever learn? But we got this grievances. Yeah, it's always going to be grievances. How are you going to handle it, you know?
Yeah, and, you know, you can't make light of it because people are suffering on all sides. But what I love about comedy is that you've got people of all kinds of persuasions and viewpoints. You get them in the same room, you make them all laugh at the same thing together. They're just people.
There's unity there.
Yeah. And we're all just people.
At the end of the day.
To get, you know, people diametrically opposed to each other, laughing at the same thing with each other.
To have that communal experience.
It's so good.
Yeah. That's why I think comedy, there is, you know, they say how the internet's going to take away from a lot of parts of the entertainment industry, but I think comedy, plays, and music, I think, are always going to be relevant, and people are going to need to go out and experience. And I think they're going to be more relevant as time goes on, as we do become more disconnected as a society, because I think to have that communal experience, you know, we need that. That nourishes, you know, the soul to have that connectedness with others.
Yeah, and we want real stuff because we know this is, well, you know, the thing on the screen is becoming more and more real for us. That's our reality. That's it. Which is partly what our current show is about. There's a little bit of that.
Okay, great.
But yeah, we want real stuff. We are always going to want to connect in a real way with each other.
Well, speaking of real stuff, this album has some real great tunes on it. Cat Stevens, you go ahead. You tell us about it. Your favorite album.
Cat Stevens. Well, you know, I don't have a favorite album. When you said, "Oh, you've got to find a favorite," oh God, what's my favorite album? I don't know. But then I thought, what albums do I like? And this is one that I like, Teaser and the Fire Cat. And look at that illustration. Cat Stevens did that illustration.
Yeah, you mentioned, yes.
Yes.
So these iconic covers like for Tifa the Tillerman, Teaser and the Fire Cat.
He's an artist as well. There he is, the young cat.
Look at him, looking cool there.
Yeah. I'm being followed by... No, sorry, I couldn't resist. So apparently he wrote and illustrated a children's book, which was published for a little while. I think it's out of print now, about these two characters and their experience with the moon. And I just watched, looking into this, a short animated film that was based on the children's book.
Right.
It was made in 1977. Which you can see on the internet.
Now, did he animate it, or
no?
It was based on his?
They were based on his illustrations.
Yeah,
and it's narrated by Spike Milligan. So he
fantastic.
talks about the thing, and then they fall down, and then the moon went down here. Oh,
right.
Like that. And basically, the moon falls from the sky, falls into a building, and he and the cat are trying to dislodge it, and then it falls down and falls into a river, and they fall onto it, and it flies up into the sky. So it's almost, you're getting into Yellow Submarine territory there. So just check it out. It's just like a 7-minute.
Because I remember in the 90s, there was, when they released one of the best of Cat Stevens, and they had an animation of his style of artwork for the commercials. And I remember that was always on. I remember seeing that. And I wonder if it was most likely taken from that series.
Yeah. It was really nice. And this, I think of this as his love hippie album. Like he must have been going through a hippie phase.
Yeah, with the Peace Train.
Yeah, it's very much about that.
Yeah. But I love the way though that he is able to address those without it being corny or without it seeming, oh God, here we go. You know, because I think it's difficult to write those sort of love songs or those peace and love songs and make them work.
Yeah.
You know, it's and I always thought, man, he's pulled it off.
It's of its era. You know, it's a piece of that time. You know, where there was still, some hope.
Hope, yeah.
We still had hope for peace, and Peace Train, I think, is the track from this album. Just the sound of it, the way it's produced. I was just listening to it. The instruments, the incorporation of the guitar. So many guitar students have started with these songs, you know.
Yes. And him doing it acoustic too. There's a DVD that I got years ago, and it's just one of the bonus added extras, and him just sitting down, playing a lot of the songs just acoustically. The acoustic version, and it's a real kind of bluesy version of it, and but the essence of the song is driving through it. It's brilliant.
Look, I'll always go for an acoustic version of anything.
Yes.
I love it. It's sort of pared down, and some of these are more pared down than others. Actually, I was going to say Morning Has Broken, but it's got stuff that comes in. I think that's one of the more gaudy of the songs.
Yes.
There's a bit of a gaudy aspect.
Yeah, he's on a spiritual quest.
But you don't have to. I don't necessarily buy into the God thing. I know there's something going on.
Yeah, something's out there.
Something's going on.
Yeah. But the categorization of it.
And you don't have to think about, it's that morning has broken is about what God's doing every day. It's just, you can just go, nature is just awesome.
Yes.
Yes, the wind.
The wind's a great one.
Another one that guitarists do. That stuff.
And there's one track on it, which what is it? How Can I Tell You? That's a great track.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a mournful one.
Yeah, it is, and just trying to find the words.
And you feel like he's feeling it. And a lot of the best of these kind of troubadours, folk singers, you feel that emotion coming through, just every little twitch and quaver in the vocal. What's it? If I laugh, yeah. That's another one. If I laugh.
Yes.
And that's a missed love. It's someone if only he'd done that, he could have been with this person. And it went by. That's another one. But Peace Train.
Holy roller,
that's a cool track, man. And it's got the drums coming in. There's no sign of a lead electric guitar on this album. There's a bass. That's the only electric, I think, on this. But the Peace Train is this with the claps. Have you ever tried to keep up? I'm constantly failing. Even re-listening to this, I was going, oh no, too late. Too early.
So it's like comedy. You got to be right on the.
I know. And it just made me think, because I was in the living room and the ding. No, it's for that time. What are you doing, Kat? And I just imagined someone walking outside the house. It's the classic cut to the long shot of the absurd activity you've seen in so many movies, and someone would have been saying, this person going. That's so many times.
It's like, he's trying. It's good. At least he's giving it a go.
Okay, there's something going on in there. But any time something just physically bizarre is happening, I switch to long shot mode.
Yes.
Where in someone's office in a movie, and you suddenly cut to the outside, and the person's doing that weird thing. But yeah, just builds great.
Did you get into this album when you were younger?
Yeah. I mean, when I grew up, I was hearing Cat Stevens on the radio.
Yes.
Because that's how old I am. And but yeah, some of these songs were on the radio. I never had the album. I got it really late, the album. But the songs, and he was around.
Because I associate it with my childhood, a lot of Cat Stevens, and like my mum, like going on, like, summertime, taking a road trip, and the tape on in the car, and it's like a soundtrack to a lot of holidays. Yeah,
that's right. It's part of it's in the fabric of your memory, isn't it? Which is a really nice thing.
And for so many years, I was. Oh man, I wish he was touring. Like for so many years, I was like, I would always thought I'd love to see him live, and then. 2017, he came out to Australia and did the big the Kudos Bank Arena, and I managed to get front row tickets for me and my mum, so I took her along to see it. And it was brilliant. Yeah. And the great thing, his voice is still great. And the reason why I think, because you like I love it, people like Elton John, but he always sang in a higher register, whereas Kat or Yusuf was always in the that lower kind of register. So his voice is still sounding great in that low register today. Yeah, I was looking at the Glastonbury footage from last year. Okay. And I was thinking the same thing. Still sounds great. Yeah. So what were you? Yeah. No, I was going to say the thing too about the show, which I loved, is and I say show instead of concert, because he had a big set like a house, but then had his bedroom from when he was a kid and had a turntable. So he would walk over and sit down and tell a story about hearing these 4 young guys from Liverpool, and you'd put the record and play a little bit from the record, and so the influence that these guys had on him, and so it was a very he brought you into his world. Yeah, it was a really lovely, like in front of 20,000 people, to have that kind of intimacy of sharing those moments throughout his life. Yeah. So nice. Yeah, I was looking at the Glastonbury clip. Right.
This is a good thing about the internet. And the comments, and someone said, hey, this guy's voice hasn't changed. You know, he sounds the same.
Right.
And somebody else said, yeah, but he always sounded like an 80-year-old. So which is how old he is now.
Yeah.
So
he had that
kind of
wisdom.
fits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was all those that like father and son, the underlining wisdom that you could take away from the song. You could enjoy it on a surface level musically, but there was always, you know, if you dug a little, there was always a little something extra to take away from it.
Yeah, but yeah, this album, you know, there's a lot in it that there's this optimism about. Oh look, there's going to be peace. Peace Train, particularly. It's coming. It's coming. Still coming.
Yeah,
still
the peace train's
we're
still
still
rolling.
On the platform.
We're still waiting. Yeah, we got our ticket. Yeah.
But there is a line like, crying about the world as it is.
Yes.
But you know, we can get together. You know, I like that attitude, and
like his other Where Do the Children Play on his other albums. It's it's a real. He always had that kind of social conscience in his work, and you know, it's still as relevant today as a lot of these tracks. I think they still hold up. You know, with their relevance. It's just it's a shame it's 40 years on and we still haven't still haven't made it, still haven't got there.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think we'll get there.
Yeah, they have that optimism. Yeah, and I think we need that optimism, and it's continually disappointing with what happens in the world, but I think it's important to maintain that sense of hope and optimism.
Yeah, let's keep bringing them together with the comedy.
Yeah.
Get them together in a room together.
Yep, yes.
Yes, but I'm going to still
work on the timing of that. Now every time I listen to Peace Train and I hear that clapping, you're going to be on my mind.
I've done it.
Well, you know, this album was released in 1971, and it just happens to coincide with your favourite film that was released.
Yes.
In 1971, which has the great crossover here, which is Harold and Maude.
Harold and Maude.
And you'll notice that because I had a copy of it. Now this was my brother's favourite film when we were kids. So I saw it countless times when I was a kid, and I lent him the DVD. So I didn't have it. You were bringing the DVD.
And I forgot.
So I quickly printed out a copy of the cover here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Of the great Hal Ashbury's Harold and Maude.
Yeah, Hal Ashbury, interesting director, Hal Ashbury. He did Being There.
Yes. Yep, with Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
And The Last Detail with Jack Nicholson.
Right. And Coming Home, I think it is.
Yeah. It was with John Voight.
Yeah. So it was pretty important films he did.
But very unique to his view of the world or take on the world, which Harold and Maude sort of personifies that unique.
I mean, I have so many favourite films, but this is one of them. You know, we were talking about, is it going to be? I was thinking, do I do Barton Fink? Because that kind of encapsulates its own thing.
Yes.
What we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
It's very much. It's an art. It's a piece of art. It's very much its own thing. It's not naturalistic, but it's beautiful in its own thing. And this is the same thing. It's its own. And when you mentioned your brother and your experience of it, I've got to do.
You've got to go with Harold and Maude.
Yeah.
Which, tell us about like when you first saw it and your thoughts on.
When I was a kid, I made this book. Every film I saw, I'd write it down and give it a star rating from when I was about 13 onwards for years and years. And Harold and Maude got 3.5 stars.
Out of 4?
Out of 4. 5 is like the imagined perfection that never occurs.
Because I thought you were going for like the Siskel and Ebert or the Roger Ebert, where they would only give 4 stars, and it was always out of 4. You know, which I don't know, because it's you usually think 5 stars is.
Nothing has ever gotten 5 stars because there's no such thing. So people have argued with me about that. Why do you even have that then?
So for you, a 4-star is like brilliant.
An experience, and generally that's growing up, you know, it may not be the best film, but it was one of the best experiences. So you've got Jaws and Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark and those kinds of cool movies, you know. And this was like 3.5 because I was at that age where I don't quite understand this, but I
you
really
knew enough.
like it. Yeah.
Yes. That's what my viewing of it. When I was a kid too, I didn't quite understand everything in it, but I knew enough to thoroughly enjoy it and to know this is something special.
Yeah, I'd take it up to 4 now. Yeah, it was really. And I think we also saw it in film study. In high school, we did film study, genre and stuff like that, and we could really appreciate it. Interesting. Did you know that Hal Ashby is in this film?
No, I didn't.
Just rewatching it the other night, there's a scene in the fairground. They go to the fairground, they go on an amusement park ride, and they come off. And he said, "Oh, you must have liked that. It was a new experience to her." And, blah, blah, blah. And then they're playing with these model trains.
I remember that. Yes.
And the trains are coming around, and there's this guy in the shot, and he's got long hair, and he's staring at the trains. He's got long hair, long beard, like a hippie, just a complete hippie, and just staring at the trains. And there's the two of them and him in the shot.
Wow.
And I was looking at it going, bloody hell, I think that's Hal Ashby.
He's done a Hitchcock.
Yeah, because I'd looked at a documentary on Being There, because I'd watched that recently, and I thought, oh, geez, interesting looking guy. He looks like a real hippie.
Yeah, he has that kind of, was it Larry Charles, the director?
Yeah.
And Rick Rubin, the producer. They have that the long beard, the hair.
The guru.
Yes, the guru look.
Yeah, and then I thought and I kind of went, oh, it is him. I hadn't noticed that before.
Right.
He's in there. He's done the Hitchcock.
Yeah, he's just to be able to take, because I remember reading years ago about when this film came out, how it wasn't critically, well received.
Critically, commercially failed.
No, so which kind of made it more unique to discover. Like it wasn't like you didn't have people saying you got to watch this film, which I don't know. I guess my parents must have got it on VHS when my brother and I were kids, but I remember my brother just being blown away by it and watching it countless times and appreciating it on that, on the surface level, but then years later going back watching it as an adult being, oh wow, this has so many just great life messages throughout it, and little things too, which is testament to Hal Ashby. Like he didn't harbor or labor on certain themes in it. He gave you just a little, like the perfect example was the numbers for the concentration camp on her arm. I remember seeing that as a kid, not understanding it, and asking my mum, and her explained to me. But it's only like a fraction of a second that you get that. There's no other mention of the Holocaust. There's no other mention of her backstory. But just that one little shot of the numbers on her arm spoke a million words. It just gave you everything you needed to know about her backstory to realize why she is the person that she is, embracing life and living every day to the fullest.
And it added extra layer to everything that you experienced with her from then on and thought about from before.
Right, up until that point,
And you're right. I was thinking the same thing. They didn't make a big thing about it.
No, brilliant.
Yeah.
Like just that, it wasn't even like a second that it was even on that. I remember it was just like a flash. Of that moment when they're sitting there and the sun's going down, all the birds are flying. And
really
for him to recognize and realize that at that point too, and for like he was experiencing what we did as an audience in that moment, and nothing needed to be said. Just
so nice, and they're really well cast.
Bud Cort, and I remember, I always remembered the name Bud Cort. I always remember him, and never saw him in anything until years later in Life Aquatic, Steve Zissou.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's in that?
Yeah, with Bill Murray and...
I haven't seen that one.
But I remember seeing the credits for it and seeing Bud Cort. I'm like, that's Bud Cort? My goodness. Yeah, it was just such a trip. And but seeing him in a Wes Anderson film all these years later, and
somehow
wondering from when I was a kid, knowing the name Bud Cort, knowing that, and then seeing him in that film.
His mother, I'm not sure about his mother in the film. I feel like she's a little
Heightened.
heightened,
Yes.
yeah, little panto or something.
Yes, yes.
Vivian Pickles.
Was that
actress's name?
right? Okay.
And I guess if you're going to have a name like Pickles, you're going to
You're going to play it big, yeah.
or more really small.
Yeah.
Go one way or the other.
Yeah. But Ruth Gordon, though, she was just a firecracker. Just like perfect for this role. Like you didn't even question her. Like that's her.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. That she and her eyes. So much came through her eyes. Like the pain when she remembered late in the film. She remembered her time. And you've seen the number by now. She recollected back then, and you could see that pain just appear in her eyes.
Right.
It was so well done. Colin Higgins, who wrote the script, who grew up partially in Australia.
Oh, really?
And directed 9 to 5 and The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Oh.
And Foul Play.
Really?
And wrote Silver Streak.
Right.
With Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
He wanted to make a sequel about what happened to Harold, and a prequel featuring Maud and Richard Pryor's character from Silver Streak.
Wow.
About how he taught her to steal cars. that would be part of the prequel.
Yeah.
I would have loved that.
Gosh, yeah, that would have been brilliant.
Yeah, but he wrote that script, and apparently the script was his uni thesis.
Right.
So it came from his uni days.
So that was one of the first things he would have written then.
Yeah.
And it's such a unique, it's it ticks all the boxes for storytelling. You got this one character who's obsessed with death and suicide, and who's in the depths of depression in life, and then you got this other character who's been through the horrors of life and has every reason to be depressed and see the darkness in life, yet sees the light and the joy.
Yeah. Beautiful. And the film itself is like it's one of those, like The Graduate's kind of the beginning of those kinds of movies. It's like an outsider's view of the mainstream. It's like these guys are on the outside and they're looking at the mainstream and what people think is what you should do.
Yeah, and it deconstructs it so well, like with the uncle, the military, with the pulls on the pin and the fake arm comes up, the sleeve, and just showing the absurdity of that way of thinking of someone that would, get joy, out of killing others. And when Harold in that scene with him goes, I just want to kill people, and he does the whole act out, and he sees her as, attacks her as the old lady, and she falls down to that hole in the ground. And it's just so absurd, but in that showing the absurdity of the whole, wanting this kid to join the military and go and kill people, like what he.
The madness.
Yeah.
It's very much a hippie's perspective, I think. I think about a week ago, literally about a week ago, I was I was looking at something and I just thought, oh my God, I think I'm a hippie. I think I'm a hippie. I hadn't realised.
What was the realisation?
I think I called something cool.
Yeah.
And that was a twig.
Yeah.
I've been saying cool things are cool because they are. Some things are cool.
Yeah.
And I've been saying it quite a lot.
Yeah.
And then I was looking into, possibly I was thinking about this, actually, the kinds of movies I'd like and experiences and the music, and I thought, it fits the MO of a hippie. I don't have that much of a work ethic. I'm very imaginative.
Yeah, I like nature.
Yeah, it all fits.
Yeah.
I have a very special relationship with the moon.
Yeah. I was going to say you should move to Byron Bay, but Byron's changed so much you wouldn't fit in there. And then I was going to say move to Mullum, but Mullum's changing. So where do the hippies go? Nimbin, yeah.
the last refuge.
Yeah.
They have to fight.
Yeah.
They put a wall around.
Yeah. Just keep all the yuppies out.
Yeah,
You know?
that's
No
right.
gentrification allowed.
Yeah, you're gonna have to fight to keep them out. But no, we don't fight.
No,
We don't.
yeah.
How
What do
are
we do?
gonna-
Passive resist.
Yeah. Extreme passive resistance.
But you know what I always thought too? Like the third character in this film was Cat Stevens.
Yeah.
Because you see the way that his songs are able, in those silent moments, able to communicate so much. Like that ending with his song "Trouble," you know, and when he's there pleading with the doctors and with the nurses and trying to get them to do something as Maud's in the hospital bed being wheeled off and having that track "Trouble" over that. It's just brilliant. There's a brilliant selection of songs for that.
Yeah, even if you don't like it, same with the album. You know, I don't necessarily understand all those lyrics, but there's a feeling that comes over me.
Yeah.
An emotion, and that's, you know, the emotions fit these things.
Interesting you say that, because there's a great another musician, Bruce Springsteen. He does a storytellers, like a VH1 storytellers, and he was, I think it was a song "The Rising" he was talking about. And he's deconstructing that song for that audience, for this show. And he says, look, I just came up with all of what I'm saying tonight, I came up with last night. Was I thinking this consciously as I was writing the song? No. But was I feeling it? 100%. So it's that, even for a songwriter, not necessarily to recognize it on a conscious level, but to be able to feel it in their gut, what they're communicating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's poetry.
Yeah, so that just came to mind as you said that.
Yeah. What else was I going to say about this?
If you want to sing out, great track.
Sing out, sing out.
Don't Be Shy,
Yeah.
brilliant. And which were the two tracks that he wrote for this film at Cat
Yeah,
Stevens.
beautiful. And you couldn't get those tracks for a while,
Right.
apparently, until they finally
That-
released.
That's what when I was younger, I was looking for those tracks on his albums, going, where's, if you want to sing out, where is that? Don't Be Shy, which is a fun song, Don't Be Shy, to play on. It's like four chords up and down the fretboard, it's just so fun to sing that song and play it acoustically.
Nice. So you played?
I tinker. Yeah.
I did 2 months of guitar in high school.
Yeah.
We did a little bit of this, a little bit of James Taylor, a little bit of Stairway to Heaven.
Nice. Bit of Fire and Rain in there.
Yeah. But I haven't done it since, and I don't think I have the brain that can multitask and play and sing at the same time. I'm one of those people who can't.
I don't know. I've had some friends say that to me before with strumming and singing, but I got my own kind of strumming style, and I got my own finger picking style, which I'm able to sing to. So it kind of, it's not cool. Exact to the way that the strumming of the song, but it works for me. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's the thing, not to be thinking about it.
Yes.
It's like if you think about walking, you cannot walk normally. If
right.
You're thinking about it,
right.
You just do it.
Yeah.
And that's the ideal scenario on a comedy stage.
Right.
Where you're not thinking, of course you've got to think about stuff that react to stuff, but if you're just as present, as possible, that's ideal.
Yeah, it works, And that enables you then to connect with the audience too, or they connect with that.
Yeah, and if a little door opens, you can just go through that little door.
Yeah.
Okay, that was nice.
It's great selection. And I love the little tie-in there of the Cat Stevens with the album and with the soundtrack to that.
Apparently, I just read, Elton John was the original choice to do the music because he was up and coming.
Right.
In the tradition of The Graduate and Simon and Garfunkel, and he pulled out, but he suggested Cat Stevens.
Brilliant.
He said, "No, try this guy."
Well, speaking of singing in higher and lower registers, there you go. You got you got Cat Stevens, which we can all sing along to still.
Yeah. The circle is now complete.
Well, because I heard with that, because they didn't release because you mentioned how the soundtrack didn't come out way back when, because essentially, if you think about it, the soundtrack's like a best of collection of Cat Stevens. So I'm sure he was like going, well, hang on, I want to release a best of at some point. You know, if you've already got Harold and Maude soundtrack out, they've already released a best of. So I'm sure there was some kind of business decision in that. But there is a soundtrack of it now.
Yeah, there is now. I must get.
Yeah.
Apparently there was a Japanese soundtrack. It was the first soundtrack.
Oh,
but
really?
It had a bunch of songs that weren't even on the soundtrack.
Of course.
Which is the best of.
Which you could have bought when you were over there in the 80s.
Yeah.
There's a great Japanese, and I have never seen that album, but I look out for it. I want to get it on vinyl, of that band called Happy End.
Oh.
And they're on the soundtrack to, which is how I found out about them, to Lost in Translation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And they got this song. I'll be messing it up, but it's like that song that goes like Kazi o Atumate, and it's on whatever that means.
Yeah.
But it's on the soundtrack to Lost in Translation.
I think I have that soundtrack. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah. Check that one out.
Yeah.
And so I'll have to go to Japan sometime because they've still got Tower Records in Japan. When I went to I think it was when I went to Yokohama, and it was, I loved it. It was like going back in time, going into a Tower Records store, because I used to go to the one on Sunset Strip all the time when I lived in the States, and and I think it's still there. It was when I was there in 2000 and bada bing, whenever that was.
Yeah, could easily be.
Yeah,
they do allow.
Yeah, they hold on. They hold on to that.
Yeah.
Well.
Okay.
Great film. Great album. Now we move on to your favourite books.
Bookuses.
Yeah.
I thought I'd bring, this isn't the main book, or books, but I wanted to bring this in as an honourable mention.
Where the Wild Things Are, yes.
It's such an influence on me in terms of the look, the detail, the world, taking you into a world. This is important to me. That you're brought into a world.
Sparking that imagination.
Yeah, and if you look at it, that's a world. And look at that detail, the cross hatching. Oh God, I've got a plastic one of those, doing exactly that.
Right.
So it's this kid, and he's sent to bed without any supper, as most of you probably know, and then it changes. Look at the world developing. Look at that. And he's taken to this. You can just from that flip, you can see how you're just drawn into this alternate world. And
did you read this when you were a kid? So it had this major impact, and you can clearly see that, continuing into your work that you do. Creating that imagination, creating that imaginative world.
So you're there, and with the thing, with the mime stuff that we did. It is very much that, and it was nice. We recently did a show at a clown festival, because apparently we're clowns. I didn't want to admit that, but apparently that's what we are. And one of the clowns, a really nice clown, said that she thought that she really saw the stuff on stage, because we were doing the old material, because it was for a Sicilian audience, not much language. And she said, I could see all the things on stage. It was so manifested. Right. I thought, that's great. We've succeeded in, you've entered our world. Yeah. You're actually, we've connected to your imagination.
It's fantastic.
It's a beautiful thing.
I've thought of this before, and I've been meaning to ask you this. When you say going back to your older stuff, which was more just you and Dave on stage, with some lighting and what have you, but now you've incorporated, like you've created your own style with screens on stage, and how you enter within a screen, but then it's a screen within a screen. So you're creating. How do you? And did you make a conscious effort to toe the line of not taking away from you two and what you're creating, so that the audience doesn't think, thinking visual effects, sound effects, all that kind of stuff? Because the uniqueness in what you guys do is because it is you. You're not relying on, sound effects to create what you create, or on special effects to create what you create.
Well, it is. I mean, the show is the current show, The Distraction.
Yes.
Is very much special effects.
Yes.
It's live green screen with cameras and green screens on stage and a big screen above with Doug, our co-creator and co-worker on this show, mixing the whole thing live.
Right.
So you see a composited image constantly, different types of composited and weirdly manipulated images. But at the same time, you see us below that, running around doing, it's like this thing is handmade, and we want to keep that feeling. Like you really got to be, if you want your head to explode, it's going to have to be right there at a certain point in relation to whatever the shot is. So there's a certain comedy in the desperation of running from camera to camera and having to be in exactly a certain position, so it matches with the special effect. So that's still hopefully keeping that sense.
Totally. And that makes, because watching Side of Stage that night when you guys were at the Enmore, and my appreciation for what went in behind the scenes to create what was like tenfold. Because watching you guys with the timing to get on the ground, to get the angle of the camera right for that one shot, then bam, you're up, you're bolting across the other side. Yeah, that is as entertaining as what's happening on the screen.
Well, hopefully it also gives it rewatchability, because you can watch the thing and then you can come back, I wonder how they did
pull back the curtain on it.
Yes. He's holding that thing up. But also just looking at Doug's computer screen, it's just completely mystifying to me. It's like hieroglyphics.
Right.
He's got all these little things joined by lines and stuff. I do not know how his brain does that. It's incredible.
So integral to...
Yeah.
And I used to think that years ago watching when Michael Walker did it with the... which show was it? I remember it was one of the first shows that had a heap of effects in it.
The Rehearsal.
The Rehearsal, yes.
Yeah, I love that show.
Yeah, likewise. I remember seeing that at the Athenaeum in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I remember I was up towards the back and I'm watching Michael and then watching this, and it's like, this guy's like the silent Umbi up the back here.
Definitely.
You know?
And
like the Wizard of Oz pulling strings behind the curtain to make all this.
And that's the thing, comedy timing, he has to have the timing.
Yes.
And the complicité with us to react and apply these things and the lights. And it's been the same with the various shows with the lighting changes.
From that point on,
beforehand,
yes, with like speed mouse.
Yeah. We do a thing and the lights have to happen exactly at the same time.
Right.
And that's another world, and the audience thinks it's an actual place because it's all happened at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, I really like the rehearsal for the different types of comedy that was crammed into one show,
right,
and sort of threaded back and forth.
That had the wombat in it, right? The puppet.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a fight scene. With against the giant wombat. In the screen. Yeah. It was a fun one to do. So that's a world. And in high school, I even wrote my own children's, because there was a children's literature unit in high school, and I created my own monster book.
Oh, really?
With a lot of cross-hatching and a lot of little monsters and stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of releasing it?
My mother keeps saying I should publish it.
Yeah.
You should get that published.
Yeah.
That's I think that's just going to stay. It's going to stay in the drawer for special guests like yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to see it. I'll be a worthwhile trip to Canberra.
Yeah, but it's similar to this. It's got all these weird little monsters and of different shapes, and there's a lot of cross-hatching.
Yeah.
A lot of shadow and stuff.
But it's great that you've maintained what you got from that, from your childhood. You've maintained that throughout your career, and having that influence.
It's funny the things that stick with you or influence you, like the Goodies. You used to watch, the Goodies was repeated so much in Australia. Not in England, but in Australia. And there's a particular episode at the movies, I think it's called, which does have a kind of Buster Keaton style screen within screen, coming out of a screen and into a screen and changing perspectives. And I think that stuck in my head as well.
Yeah.
So these things.
Yeah, they're just working away back there in the subconscious.
So
that brings us to your favourite books.
Bookases.
Look at this.
This is It's the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Fantastic. J.R. Tolkien?
Yep. I don't know if that seems a bit daggy, but...
No, that's... this is... Especially the fact that you brought this on a plane from Canberra today. I appreciate that. I tell you, 99% of people would be like, I ain't bringing a 3-book trilogy as carry-on.
Yeah. Well, it's a little... Full disclosure, I nearly brought The Hobbit, but that would have tipped the scales, because there would have been another one of these. But yeah, this, again, it's a world. He's created a world which has been much exploited since then, and will continue to be exploited in various media, but he's so detailed about this world. And the way he describes the countryside that these characters are journeying through, so he can see, you can...
Brings it to life.
Yeah, he's looking at it. You know, he said, oh, there's a path over here to the left, the mountains, there was shade on the mountains, sun was breaking over there were these trees. So he's picturing these landscapes. So you really get drawn into it. And of course we're all influenced by the movies.
And what are your thoughts, having read the books, been fans of the books, and then seeing the movies? You know, like, it's always hard for movies to hold up to a book, but how did you find that experience?
I came to these late, like just before I saw the movies.
Okay.
My partner got me into them, and we used to read them. And I reread them every several years. Right. And there's so much in these things that, again, I'm about halfway through the Two Towers. Just had the Battle of Helm's Deep, which people might remember from the Two Towers movie, which was realised really well in the movie.
Right.
I thought, but it feels like a new thing every time. I just don't remember things. I didn't remember that. It feels like reading a new book every time. But yeah, the films, I liked the movies. Yeah. The 3 movies. They cut quite a bit out. They had to.
Sure. Even at the length that the films were.
Yeah.
You're still not going to cover everything.
I thought they were good. My partner is of a different opinion, because they're precious childhood items. And the thing is, if this is in your psyche, you see the movie, then it's kind of overwritten. You can't unsee what those people look like. And, you've got your own idea of what they look like. Right. And now you can't unsee that stuff, which I was okay with because I thought they were pretty well done. So there's that. But the Hobbit movie,
yeah, I didn't see it, but I heard it was of people who are fans of the books and of the films, and they said, no, you can give that one a miss.
Because it was a smaller book, but it's 3 movies. Was it 3 movies?
Something like that, yeah.
For a smaller book. And the problem for Peter Jackson, I think, was that he'd made these movies, so that was the tone. But The Hobbit was a children's book written way before these. Right. So it was much more innocent and builds to a little battle at the end, which is covered in a few pages.
And did he try to make it more like...
It had to be more
Lord
like this, because this is what the audience... The much more adult, violence, action-packed. So The Hobbit became a bit more like that. And so this thing that took a few pages at the end of the book was like the last half hour of the movie, which was very impressive, but... It didn't have that...
The gravity to it, like this...
Yeah, and the Hobbit lightness of the Hobbit.
Right.
And then you've got characters like Gollum, which, reading the books, you would think he goes, precious, my precious.
Right,
But now it's just, my precious,
yeah.
But in the book, it's...
Right, so the R's are pronounced.
Yeah, so it's been... Yeah. What we all think of Gollum is now... Precious. Oh, precious. So, precious. So there's stuff like that, but, But I'm willing to forgive that.
Because he wrote these back in the 30s, right? Like it was the late 30s, I believe.
30s was The Hobbit, and feel like it might have been the 50s that these came out.
Okay.
But, let's have a look.
Yeah. Let's get to the bottom of that. You're like, oh, look at that, 2019. Oh, that's a reprint.
54.
54 it came out.
Yeah.
Ah.
Do you have favourites? Any favourite books?
Favourite books? Yeah, I do. One of them would be Somerset Maugham's The Razor's Edge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that I was really really impressed with.
I haven't read it.
Yeah, it's Somerset Maugham. I just love his style of writing. It's very I find a lot of the people with the works that I've read, he focuses on people that are, especially with the main character in Razor's Edge, on a quest, find out, what does all this mean? What does this world mean? Like, in that the main character, he's offered, he returns from the war, from World War I, and he's offered a nice cushy job, for his father-in-law working on Wall Street, and there's a scene where he's lying in bed talking to his fiancée, saying, "Is this it? Is my aspiration in life to have that amount of money in my bank account, to have a better car, to have a bigger house? It's got to be more." And then he has this realization, I got to go and figure out what this is like. So he takes off overseas. He goes initially to Paris and spends some time there with a family friend, and then takes off to India and travels across India and goes up into the hills and studies the different philosophies and different religions.
So really it turns into a spiritual...
Yeah, the spiritual quest that he comes on. Yeah, and then he comes back, and then the friend that he who went off and took the job working on the stock market, there's the big stock market crash and the Great Depression hits. So his whole identity is lost, and now these people are coming to him for the answers, trying to find out, what is. So kind of all the tables turn, and it's a very it's just sort of deconstructing a lot of what we aspire for in the Western world, and sort of putting the mirror back on it.
What's the writing like?
It's great. It's very Somerset Maugham's way of writing. Like, he wrote another one, The Painted Veil, and Moon and Sixpence, and he's just very. It's very easy to immerse yourself in that world. Like, he doesn't pontificate. He's not overly. It's very conversational. I find. Like, it's like, I feel he's just telling me this story of this guy that he met at a party once, and
nice.
So, very elaborate answer to that question, but
it's interesting to me. Yeah, that at what level is it conversational, and that's a real art.
Yes.
To be a writer at a certain level and make it accessible to people. Rather than impenetrable.
Right, and I feel that's what the greats do. They're able to make big ideas conversational and accessible, and they don't feel the need to overly pontificate or.
The writing style in this is it's like olden style.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I imagine suits that, it's that world. Shakespearean type of dialect.
It kind of makes it acceptable that all these weird characters and creatures exist. They cast themselves down in the heather a few yards from the roadside. Sort of cast themselves down.
Yeah, they crouched behind. No, they cast themselves down. Yeah.
And you just kind of go with that stuff. One thing the films did was give women more agency. Because they don't have much agency in this.
Right.
Even though there's Galadriel, who's kind of a god figure, they did something, contemporized it, which was kind of unnecessary.
And do you think that's because of the time it was written, or
I think the time
or
and
the society that? Because because as soon as you said that, I just thought Shakespeare. Then I thought, hang on, no, Shakespeare had some very strong, strong women figures and characters, which, in his Shakespeare is so groundbreaking or whoever wrote those is so groundbreaking in that time for
Oh yeah.
Turning social norms on their heads,
Yeah. Actually, someone was talking to me about having been a Jehovah's Witness as a child, and that they couldn't. There was all this stuff they couldn't watch. They couldn't because of the sex, violence, whatever. They were not. But the one thing they were allowed to read was Shakespeare. And this person said,
"Interesting."
Little did they know that Shakespeare has everything.
Right.
It's got everything.
Yes.
All that stuff that was not
prohibited. Yeah. But done in a poetic way. So I guess they thought it was
interesting. Yeah. So yes, I think it is the kind of social group that he was part of that informed this, and also he experienced World War One, and it was like a lot of men being killed. I mean, a lot of people being killed, but the soldiers. Yeah,
young men.
Yeah. So I think that kind of
framed the
Yes, look at that.
Look at that.
And this map style. Where are the maps? I don't know. Oh, look at this. This has been imitated by so many things. The style of map.
The opening credits to Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Right?
All comes from this.
Right.
And he did that. He did those.
Well, just to be able to create that world is what I think what all great art is, creating that world. You know? Which is, what you and Dave do nightly on stage.
A world, yes, in a world.
And you're going to be taking your tour around the world coming up. You're taking it back to Europe. And
we're going to Germany and back to Finland. We haven't been to Finland for a while. Back to Prague, a few other places.
It's great that you are able to traverse that language barrier, and take it to places that comedy doesn't normally, Western comedy, I would imagine, doesn't normally tread.
Yeah, we have gone to Korea, done the Busan Comedy Festival.
Oh yeah, Busan. I like Busan. That's a good town.
Yeah, that's the only place in Korea I've been.
Yeah, likewise.
Right. Nice town, and you definitely can't do English in that. You've got to really keep it.
Sure.
Almost language free. We've done shows in France, and they said, no, you're going to have to speak French.
Yeah, wow. So did you speak French?
And so I had to learn some French.
Fantastic.
Just to join enough to join the dots.
Sure.
And of course you can say basic English things like, it's okay.
Yeah, right.
Whatever. And I enjoyed that because it's like doing it for the first time.
Yeah, you're out of your comfort zone. So.
Old stuff, doing the classic stuff, and seeing how they reacted and trying to find equivalent French phrases to, like, there was one joke where we've got this cat, it appears, and it's David is firing weapons at a person and he shoots a cat. I go, oh, it's a cat. And he fires something else and same cat, and it gets a laugh. It's a very simple laugh.
Yeah.
And chat is French for shut. So I said shut, and then mem shut, same cat. Got a bigger laugh than in English. And then he runs over the cat in a tank, and I just have to keep making the cat noises for as long as he's running back and forth over. So I'm just helpless standing there. So he's driving back and forth over this.
Just watching you. Yeah.
And I'm helpless. I just have to. And he eventually finishes running over this cat. And in English, I usually say that cat's got about 5 lives left, I'd say. And what was it in French? Encore 5 vies. About 5 lives left. Encore 5 vies.
Yeah.
Huge laugh.
Fantastic.
How satisfying is that when you can translate something?
Yes.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to see the show, knowing it in English, and then watching you perform it in that environment. Yeah, just from a comedic perspective, to watch that translation work.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I watched a back of the room video of one of the shows, and I was going, oh, that's a bit trying too hard to translate into another language.
Right,
It needed to become more bedded in and relaxed rather than I am speaking.
What about subtitles? You guys could work subtitles because you've got so much equipment,
Yeah, with the current show, I think we're considering that.
Yeah.
Because we may go back to Korea.
Great.
And so
perfect. Subtitles done. Next.
Excellent. Okay. But yeah, it's a real pleasure to just go to a completely different place and see what they laugh at and what they don't laugh at and stuff. Yeah.
Well, Shane, it's been a real pleasure sitting down with you today and chatting. And
I talked your ear off.
No, I loved it. It was great. It's great to get insight into so many things that I've thought over the years, but wanted to find out.
Right.
And I was going to talk about stories that you and I have had. John Candy.
John Candy.
That's definitely. But we can save that for another time.
Yeah. I'll come in and talk about some other films. Yeah.
Well, mate, all the best for the upcoming Europe tour and the tour in Australia, and I look forward to seeing the show. I want to see The Distraction in its entirety. I've only seen because I saw a bit of it. I had to go and do a show at the Adelaide
nice.
Fringe, and then I saw the bit of it at the Enmore. So I'm excited to see it in its
cool.
entirety.
I'd be interested to hear your reaction and feedback. Because
well, what I've seen so far, I've loved. So I look forward to it.
Well, all the best to you, man.
Buddy.
On the road.
Yes.
Yeah.